So here we have another group of illegal miners believed to have died, adding to the already large death toll in South Africa. They apparently died way back in May, but details are only emerging now. The Department of Mineral Resources also saying that 3 bodies have reportedly been brought to the surface. Now, remember in November, the bodies of 21 illegal miners were discovered in Krugersdorp after they were reportedly killed when a trench collapsed underground. Let's discuss. We're joined by lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation, David van Wyk. Mr. van Wyk, thank you for being with us. What were you thinking when you heard of yet more illegal miners dying?
Well, I think that it's a tragedy. I think that we don't seem to learn from our mistakes. Hegel once said that we don't seem to learn from history at all. These mines are no longer profitable for large-scale industrial mining. The law clearly states that these mines must be closed down and that they must be secured and that they must be rehabilitated, which doesn't happen. There are 6,000 abandoned mines. That's the first crime that is taking place because the government is not holding big mining companies accountable for these shafts. And these shafts are all over in between communities, usually township and poor communities, and pose a real danger to those particular communities. These mines are, however, viable and profitable for small-scale mining. And no one has done any work on re-engineering these mines to allow for smaller scale mining to take place or to re-engineer them for alternative uses. For example, the fact that there's methane gas in abundance in the Machabeng area means that it can become a major supplier of gas, and many of these mine shafts can be re-engineered to extract gas. They can also be re-engineered to do geothermal energy or to do gravitational energy. You know, we are sitting with load shedding and so on. We are sitting with dying mining towns. Which mining towns can be revamped if we actually re-engineer and work for post-mining economics, concurrent and post-mining economics, but this doesn't seem to be happening.
Well, can I stop you there and just talk about the economics of what you're talking about? I spoke to the mayor of Magaliesburg City once, who was explaining that this network is so vast, so you close up one shaft, but another will be opened. And the idea that you're talking about will apparently cost billions to rehabilitate these shafts or use them in a sustainable way. Is that something we should prioritize among so many priorities in this country, or are we helpless until we have that cash?
Well, I think that when mines abandon their operations, which is a crime, they also abandon their workers, and very often these workers cannot get access to their pensions or the other funding that is there for them to survive with. They go back to Lesotho. Lesotho has been supplying South Africa with mine workers for the last 130, 140 years. That country has become dependent on the income of migrant workers to South Africa, and mining is not sustainable or renewable. So they come to South Africa and there's nothing for them to do. They get recruited in Lesotho by syndicates pretending to be mining operations. Many of them come thinking that they are coming to work in legal operations and so on, and then they find themselves in an illegal situation, apart from the ones that get left behind by mine abandonment. But the economics of what I'm talking about is not that expensive. It's certainly much cheaper than those 2 big dinosaur power stations that we recently built and that are not actually functioning properly. You know, we seem to be so addicted to coal that we can't think of anything else, and we waste a lot of money on coal power stations which are simply not working. Coal is not providing us with the electricity that we need.
You raised the responsibility of the mining houses, and we know who was involved here, Harmony, but I have no information that suggests they didn't do what they were meant to do. But this was shaft 5 of their Virginia mine, last used in the 1990s. So what was Harmony's responsibility when a closed shop, as it were, in that area?
Well, in the first instance, Harmony had to contribute funds to a mine closure fund, and there's 50 billion rand sitting in a fund with fund managers for mine closure that should be available to the government to close that operation. But the Act clearly states, I think it's section 41 to about 47 of the Minerals and Petroleum Resource Development Act, that clearly states how a mine should be closed, and that a mine operation should receive a mine closure certificate after closure. But I don't know of very many mine closure certificates that has been issued in this country in the last 100 years. You know, so basically companies just walk away from their responsibility. And Machabeng is a real big problem. We just released the Save the Children report 2 weeks ago, where we looked at the dangers to children in these communities posed by these abandoned mines. It's not just to them, but also to adults as well. You know, a child drowned there in 2008 in one of Harmony's tailings dam facilities, for example. We have lots and lots of these kinds of cases happening around Machabeng, but also along Main Reef Road in Johannesburg, where another 8 mine workers were found today. Now, these people were dying to make a living. They are trying to make a living from the only way they know how to make a living. And, you know, we really have to insist that mine social and labor plans actually skill their workers to be able to make a living after they get retrenched.
Yeah, it's such a sad situation. Let me just reiterate, I have no information that suggests Harmony didn't do what it was meant to do, and they could, we will try and give them a chance to respond as well. There are reports coming through that this was a gas explosion, and you spoke about the methane levels. The Department of Mineral Resources says that the methane levels are so high, they can't even go in yet, but they will try and retrieve the bodies. I guess it all just suggests that, as always, when these illegal miners die, and you say some of them are lured here on false pretenses, they die in just simply dire conditions.
Yeah, you know, in the Machabeng area, we've had mine workers underground for 6 months at a time, you know, before they come up again. Imagine the damage to their lungs and so on of the dust and so on underground. And, you know, we have different kinds of these miners. We have ghost workers that are operating inside legal mines that go down with the other workers who get fed on a regular basis, who get paid monthly wages and so on, about 50% of what a normal mine worker gets. And they are absolutely at the mercy of the syndicates that control these operations. And Welcome has huge syndicated operations happening there, which basically involves everyone. Now, we also know that in the Machabeng area, Sibanye has given notice that it's going to close some of the shops there. And in my discussions with the local government there, they are furious because they can't get any information from Sibanye about how this closure is going to happen. The mine closure plan should be public documents and should be shared with the public and with local government so that people can prepare for retrenchments and they can prepare for the economic impact of sudden closures of mines.
All right, we appreciate your comments. That was lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation, David van Wyk, saying we could do a whole lot better in this regard as a country. And we are reaching out to Harmony to ask them how this closure was dealt with and deal with some of the comments there.